Hello and welcome to the very first episode that I'll be posting on my Java tutorial series. And in today's video, we are going to start off that Java tutorial series by downloading your own personal IDE as well as checking your Java version and probably learning some line of code to start off your Java journey as well as identify both printing and commenting in Java. And the first thing that we're gonna do in this video is download Visual Studio Code or the Java IDE that I have chosen to use for our tutorial. And the reason why I chose Visual Studio Code is because, of course, Visual Studio Code is a flexible IDE which allows you to manage your extensions wisely as well as help you code in Java much more easily because it has a lot of extensions that can help provide sufficient help when it comes to typing Java code. And for those of you who already watch my Unity platformer series, you might be wondering why can't we just use Visual Studio? And Visual Studio Code is different IDE, and Visual Studio is much more directed to Unity. Meanwhile, Visual Studio Code is much more general and much more flexible. But of course, we still have to download some extensions to help us code in Visual Studio Code. And I'll be covering that in this video. So let's just get started. So the first thing that you're gonna do is open up your web browser, which can be Google, and in this case, or in my case, I'm using Google. So open up your Google and search for Visual Studio Code download, and from there you get to find yourself the download Visual Studio Code here. Click on that, and we have or we're directed to a website, and this website is the Visual Studio Code official website. And from here you can just select the right version for you. If you're a Windows, click on this one. If you're a Linux, then you can click on this one or this one. And for Mac, you can just click on this one. And when installing Visual Studio Code, do make sure that you have the right bit version and right operating system version. So in my case, if you're using Windows, or in my case, of course, I'm using Windows, I'm going to click on this. But since I've already installed, just make sure you click on this, and yeah, it will direct you to the installer, and then just click on accept, and everything should run smoothly. And then once we have Visual Studio, of course, inside of Visual Studio, we have nothing prepared yet, or no extensions are downloaded yet. And that is where we need to download a Java Pack installer. And for Visual Studio Code Java Pack, you can just search Visual Studio Code Java Pack installer and click on the first thing that pops up, and you'll be directed to a Visual Studio Code website, and you can skip all of this and just directly install this for Windows and install this for Mac. For Linux, sadly, you do not have any options, and you need to do it personally in Visual Studio. And that is something time consuming, so I won't really be discussing about that, but I will tell you where to find extensions in the next following videos for Linux. But for Windows and Mac, just directly use this because it already contains all of the things that you need inside of Visual Studio Code when coding for Java. So for Windows, click on this. For Mac, click on this. And do take note that all the websites that I'm giving to you or directing you to open will be found in the link in the description of the video. So if you're lazy to actually search like Visual Studio download or Visual Studio Java Pack, you can just click on the link in the description of the video, and bam, you can get directed to both of these websites. Anyway, once you've downloaded Visual Studio Code as well as the extension, then we can get to the crucial part of this video, which is identifying what version of Java you have. But before we continue that, I also like to say something, which is do make sure that you download Visual Studio Code first before downloading the Visual Studio Code pack. Because if you download the pack first, then you'll find a lot of trouble because this pack directly checks your Visual Studio Code and identifies which part of it is missing for the pack to run. So if you don't have the Visual Studio Code in the first place, then this pack won't successfully install itself. So make sure you download Visual Studio Code first, then the pack. Okay, so now back to the Java version checking. So to check your Java, make sure you type in the search bar command prompt, or find your command prompt. And this is only for Windows, so for MacBook, I'm pretty sure there is another method, but I can't cover it currently because I don't have a MacBook, or I don't have the Mac operating system. So I can only cover for Windows. Anyway, just make sure that you open your command prompt, and for Windows, you type in Java dash version, click on enter, and it will directly output the version of Java you currently install or currently have. And in my case, I have 1.8.0, and this is the version that we are actually going to be using for this tutorial series. And if you have something higher, then it's fine, but if you have something below this 1.8, then you need to install a newer version of Java. And to do that, you go to the link found in the description of the video, and it will directly direct you to Oracle. And Oracle is the official website for downloading Java because they technically own Java. And the reason why I'm not suggesting you to search in your web browser directly is because this is an archive file or an archive download, so it's pretty hard to find. So it's better to just click on the link found in the description of the video. So anyway, once you open this link, go and scroll down to Java SE Development Kit, and that's the one that we want. And then from there, you can just select the right version for you. And if you're wondering what's times 86, it's essentially saying 64-bit, and times 64 is 32-bit. And just make sure you click on the right version that's compatible with your current device that you want to code in. So yeah, once you've done that, you can go back to command prompt again and type in again once more Java dash version. And if you got 1.8.0 dash 291 or something higher than that, then you're already good to go. So once again, firstly, you got to download Visual Studio. And then once you've downloaded Visual Studio, you can go and download the coding pack. And once you download the coding pack, check your Java version by going to the command prompt, typing Java dash version, and then you get your version. And if it's higher, then you're ready to go. But if it's below, go to the link found in the description of the video and download the right development kit version. Okay, so once you've done all of that, we can actually start programming or start writing Java code. But if you haven't done any of the steps or still doing one of the steps, pause the video right now and download Visual Studio first. Download the Visual Studio coding pack and update your Java if it's an old version. Okay, so pause the video right now and do all of the downloads first. Okay, so once you've done all of that, we can start programming in Java. So open your Visual Studio Code and it'll look something like this. And if not mistaken, if you have just opened your Visual Studio Code, you will have a lot of these extensions and welcomes from Visual Studio Code. And you don't really need to focus on that. Just directly go to your file, go to the open folder section, and in your open folder, go and make a folder specifically designed for keeping everything you learned or Java files. And in this case, I've already made a folder called Java tutorial. So if you want to make a new folder, of course, you just click on this button and type in the name. But in this case, I already have the folder, so I'm going to use Java tutorial. And click on the folder that you choose and click on select folder. And once you've done that, in the Explorer tab found in the Visual Studio Code, you get to see the name of your folder. And the thing about Visual Studio Code is that it's so flexible that it allows us to see what we have in the folder. And it also allows us to add files. And to add file, just click on this icon right here. It says new file. Click on that, and it's gonna ask us for the name. Now, I'm going to name it tutorial 1. Actually, I'm gonna capitalize that, tutorial 1. Now, here's a common mistake that people make, which is when making the file, they don't add the .java behind, because when you have or make a file here named tutorial 1 and you don't have a .java file at the end or .java at the end of the name, the computer recognizes this as a text file. So what's best is you need to rename this, and always remember that when you want to program in Java, you always have the .java at the end of every file. And Visual Studio Code is already kind enough to actually indicate this with a J. So anyway, once you've renamed that, click on enter. So let me repeat that. If you make When you make a file, remember that you need a .java file, .java at the end of the name, because that will indicate whether or not that's a Java file. And if you've already made a text file or you've made a file without the .java at the end, just right click on the file and then click on rename and type in .java at the end and then enter. Okay, so once you've done that, let's start and code the application or program. So for those of you who haven't created the tutorial 1.java file, pause the video right now and create the file first. So pause the video right now and make the file that you want for Java. Okay, so once you've made the tutorial 1.java file or anything in .java name, you can start writing the code. And what we're gonna write is a class, because in every Java file there must be a class. So we're gonna say public class tutorial 1 and then curly brackets and close brackets. Okay, so take note that these line of code here that I'm trying to say won't make sense now, but they will make sense as the series progress. So don't be afraid that you can't understand what I'm saying right now, because I'll discuss them further in the next episodes. So once you have a class, which I will of course discuss later, you need to type in public static void main and then brackets string, and then we have the square brackets and then arcs, and then curly brackets again, and there we go. So I won't be explaining what these code are because you won't probably understand now, but as the series progress, I will explain them to you. And this is also confusing, but all you need to know right now is in every Java file, we have a class, a public class, and then this right here, the tutorial 1 here, has to be the exact name that you have in the file. So if, for instance, we have test.java, then we need a public class test because it follows the name of the file. So whatever happens is you always need to have the same name as the Java file. And that's all you need to know with the class name. And for the public static void main string args, that code here allows us to run the Java code. And the keyword that's used in that line of code will be explained as we continue in the series. So don't stress that too much. Just make sure or know that this code right here is used to run all of the code inside of the tutorial1.java file or inside of the Java file. So, okay. So, yeah, you got to learn about class and how the name of the class is similar or must be same with the name of the file, as well as this line of code being used to run the file. And now what I'm going to teach you is called commenting, because this commenting is actually really important when it comes to coding, because it helps you to understand what's happening and also helps you to cover up some line of code without actually destroying any line of code. And this is what you do when you want to comment in Java. And the first thing is the single line comment, which can be done by using double slash and then type in single line comment. And when I mean single line comment, I mean that this comment here won't affect any other code, or it will only affect in line 3. This is line 3. So if we were to type in something here, this is not a comment. But before I continue explaining about single line comment, I'm just going to explain about what is a comment. So a comment is essentially like a description that you can put inside of your code that doesn't count as a line of code, or the IDE does not use this comment as a code. So you can type in anything you want here and the computer will see nothing because this is like a comment. So I'll explain this later as the series goes on, but for the meantime, we know that we have a single line comment and a multi-line comment. And a multi-line comment can be done by using a slash, asterisk, and then end that with a asterisk slash. And the difference between a single line comment and a multi-line comment is that the multi-line comment can be able to cover up multiple lines, as you can see here, as long as the opening, which is the slash asterisk and asterisk slash, is in a certain position, then anything inside of the range between that line to the other line is counted as a comment. And that's it. If it's a single line comment, you use slash slash. If it's a multi-line comment, you use a slash asterisk. And then to close it, you have asterisk slash. So yeah, that's commenting, and now we can start actually writing the code. So since this is the first video, I won't actually try to explain so much about the code, and in today's video we're actually just gonna be discussing about how to print out a text inside of Java. And to print out, so I'm just gonna comment this: print out or comment, sorry, print out or output text in Java. So when you want to do that in Java, it's pretty simple. We are just going to type in the keyword system because we're trying to indicate what the system needs to do, and then system, we need to output something, so we can type in system.out, and then we need to what? We need to print the text, so we're going to say print line. And then inside of that print line, we need to put a text or a speech or a dialogue. Like in scripts, we always use quotation marks. So we're just going to type in quotation marks and then say what we want to print. So in this case, we just want to print hello world. So quotation marks, hello world. So what's easy to remember here is system. We want the system to output something, and when we mean output, we want to print something. And inside that print, we have to say something like a dialogue. So that's why we use quotation marks. And in Visual Studio, once you've done that, you can click here, this run button right here. And this run button is going to bring up our terminal. So if you're looking at problems or output, change it to terminal. And as you can see, we have hello world. Yep. Now, I'm going to ask you to do a challenge, which is by printing out your name in Java. So try to pause the video and try to output something below hello world saying your name or writing down your name. So pause the video right now and try to do the challenge. Okay, so for those of you who know how to do it, great job. And for those of you who don't, then it's fine because this is a learning experience and I don't expect you to directly know what to do in the first place. So we're just gonna type in system because that's what we're gonna assign the computer to do. So system, we need you to output something and specifically print the name. So I'm just gonna say dev code. And then what you might also find similar to what we have already experienced or in our Unity platform series, we always end with a semicolon. This also applies for Java and yeah. So if we click on run again, we can see hello world and dev code. So yeah, that's how you simply print out text in Java. But for those of you who did the challenge, you might also start to wonder, what is the purpose of the print here? Why is there a print and another code saying print line? And here's the difference between print and print line. So if you try to print right now, you try to print, let's say, print name, and then below that we're gonna say system.out.println def code, and then we're gonna try to run. You can see in this line of code here that name and then suddenly def code just gets pushed back into the same line. Unlike the first example where we use hello world and def code here, hello world and then just like sort of like enter and then def code is found beneath it. Meanwhile, when we print name, def code suddenly becomes in the same line as name, or it's not like name, it's not like, let me do a multi-line comment. It's not like this. Name and then def code. As you can see, it's not like that. It's name and then suddenly there's def code in the same line. And the reason why that happens is because of print here. And print is essentially like printing a text, but it's not making a new line. Or what I like to refer it to as there is no enter. So if you remember typing in a Word document, you type in a text here, a text, and then you want to start a new paragraph, you type in enter and then another text. And that's how you make a paragraph, right? And in Java, we also have something like that, and that is called print line and print. So in a print, we essentially type in name, in this example, of course, and then we have print line. So it's essentially like printing something, but without an enter. And if it's a print line, it becomes something like an enter. So hello world, and then we have an enter here and then def code. So as you can see with print line, it essentially works as an enter in your Word document. So just make sure that when you have a print line, visualize it as an enter button. So after this thing is printed out, there's going to be an enter, and then after this is printed out, there's going to be an enter. But if we have print, it's just going to be this, no enter, and then print out this, and then there's enter because this is print line. So that's how you visualize it. And that's how I visualize it because it makes much more sense that way. So with all of that, I'd also like to explain to you about the use of system.out.println as an enter. Because as I've said before, it works like printing out this text and then it enters something, right? So if you were to just put nothing inside the quotation marks, then you essentially have an enter text. and I will show you in a second here. So if we have system.out.print line, and then we have no quotation marks, and then system.out.print line again, and then we're going to say hi, then we are essentially going to have a gap here. See? Hello world, devcode, name devcode, and then this here is our system.out.print line. And since we have nothing here, it's going to say, okay, we're going to print out nothing, but we're going to enter it, and then below that we have another hi. So yeah, when you have nothing in the quotation marks, then it's just going to print nothing. And then since print line always has an enter behind it, it enters, and then we can print out hi in the next line. So that's why we have a gap. So for your challenge now, I'm going to ask you to use all the concepts that you've learned and try to make something like this. It's going to be like hello, and then my name is your name, of course. You're going to print out your name, and then it's you're going to say in the next line, I survived the first video in Java. And then for this challenge, of course, you can use print line here and print. So try to type in hello, my name is in a print line, and try to use your name here if you're challenging yourself to use print, so you can connect them both. Try to do that, and yeah, try to print this in your terminal. So pause the video right now and try to do that. Okay, so if you try to print out this, we are going to try to do that. So for those of you who actually know how to do it, great job, because you got to learn the basics of Java, because this means that you already start making your own program because you get to print out all these words. So before I start, also, I'd like to comment this so that we don't get the text in our way. And let's just close this with a semicolon. With the okay, so we've already closed the comment here, and as you can see here, we're gonna type in or replicate this text here. So system.out.print line. Hello, my name is, okay, you can try a def code, and then system.out.print line. I survived the first video in Java. And always end with a semicolon, don't forget that. And if we print out or we click on our run Java, let me just restart the terminal or clear the terminal, and that can be done by killing the terminal and click on run again. It's just much more neater that way. So we can see, hello, my name is devcode, and I survived the first video in Java. If you did this, great job. But if you want to challenge yourself, as I said before, you can use print. So if you want to challenge yourself, you can use print, and then hello, my name is, and then let's just type in here below that system.out.print line, and let's just say your name. It can be anything you want, and then system.out.print line again at the end to indicate your second line. So since I don't want this thing here to actually mess up my code, I'm going to comment it once more, and that can be done using the multi-line comment, which is slash asterisk and then asterisk slash. Anyway, if we click on our run Java here, you get hello, my name is devcode. But as you can see here, we have no gap. And this is because remember that when we print, we essentially don't create an enter in the text, and then def code will directly smash into the previous line, which is why it crashes to this. So to solve the problem, you can just click on space here, because by doing that, you accommodate space, like one space, and then def code will be printed on the same line. And then since it's a print line, at the end there's an enter, and then that's why we started a new line, which is I survived the first video in Java. And yeah, I think that sums up everything. So let's review our concepts. We have the single line comment, which is done with the double slash, the slash asterisk and asterisk slash for the multi-line comment. And the multi-line comment can be done to cover up all of the code that you don't want to run any longer, as well as comments are text that you use inside of Java to write in descriptions, as well as identify what is happening in Java, and essentially gives you, the person reading the code much more understanding about what's happening. And you also know that comments are no longer read, or the computer does not read these comments, and it will only focus on the code that's not commented. And other than that, you also got to learn about print and print line, which is already a great thing because you're essentially able to make your own program. So when we want to print out, normally we use system.out.print line because at the end there's an enter, which allows us to make a sort of paragraph. So hello, my name is devcode, and then we have the enter here because it's a print line, and then bam, we start a new line. And if we use a print, we essentially use no enter, which is why our def code here can be written down in the same line as hello, my name is, because of print. So remember, print is equals to no enter because we don't ask it to start a new line, and print line is essentially as an enter because we want the computer to start in a new line. Okay, so that's the logic, and that's everything you need to know in this first video. I'll be covering more topic about Java in the next video, as well as variables. And these variables can actually help you to identify these line of codes here. So yeah, that's it. That's it for today's video. I hope you got to enjoy, you got to learn more, and thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next video.